Good to see all of you. While we're waiting for everyone to join, I still see there's quite a few folks filtering in. I want to remind you of the higher impact takeaways from my last interview in case you missed it or in case you forget. That interview was with attorney Brandon Pettyjohn. If you remember, he's the founder of a North Carolina civil litigation firm that grew revenue 150% last year. He also has nearly 500,000 followers on TikTok. So here's really what he talked about. One, the sooner you start building your brand, the better. If you remember, Brandon wisely selected and purchased an easy to say and easy to remember brand name while still in law school. That brand name has a steadily increasing value that will certainly increase the worth of his firm should Brandon ever choose to step away from the law. Number two, when practical, go where competition is light. Brandon moved his office to a neighboring city where he had zero direct competition. Smart, right? But you can also rent inexpensive space. You don't have to actually move and pursue organic rankings without physically relocating. The key to success is selecting locations with light Google My Business competition. And number three, growing a social following definitely requires wise topic selection. Wise topic selection is critical. Posting videos that only a dozen people see accomplishes very little, right? You need to experiment until you find an approach that resonates with your target audience, the people you're actually trying to reach. Then you can sprinkle in videos that highlight the work that you do. But sticking religiously to legal issues you want to explain instead of kind of providing what viewers want, that rarely succeeds. Okay, turning to today's session, which is a great one. My interview is with Tennessee injury lawyer whose 19-person firm is focused primarily on nursing home neglect cases. He shares some great lessons on both marketing and management. Let's get to it. Welcome, Jim. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so to start, let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your story. Why did you launch the firm?
Probably like a lot of folks, I was with an insurance defense firm for several years, and probably maybe about a week before they were ready to fire me because I was horrible at keeping up with my billable hours. I always enjoyed the legal work. I hated keeping up with all that part, the part about making money that they were really wanting me to do. And so I'm like, I quit. And I went and started a firm. And when I first started, it was early in my life and I didn't have children and I didn't have a house to pay for. And my dad was like, what do you got to lose? And so I just started, I did everything. I did any kind of case that would pay the bills. But I always had this start with insurance defense, and we did high-end injury cases and products cases. So I knew it and I enjoyed it. So as I started developing more of a practice, I was able to narrow down what I was doing to basically injury cases, and even more so now, probably we're about 80% nursing home neglect cases is all we do.
I'm curious, Jim, how were you kind of drumming up business in those early days? How were you finding those clients when you were first starting out?
Mm-hmm. Well, is this a truthful? Is this an honest, I guess? Okay. So when it first started out, Nashville, where we were, was still a small town, right? And we've exploded over the years. And my family was always in West Nashville and in politics. And man, I would go from churches to bars. Mm-hmm. And all these people knew my folks and my family. And when they get a divorce or they get a DUI or they get hit by a truck, they just would call me like they would call my dad. He was a neighborhood lawyer and a judge here forever. But things change. And I still get a lot of stuff just because I'm from here. My children, would go to school here. Mm-hmm. But as the city grew, so did my marketing. And of course, a lot of it kind of naturally grew for me because I was in that insurance defense world so long. I would approach those lawyers that did insurance defense and get them to refer me cases. And that's where I still to this day get my best cases from other law firms.
Nice. Yeah, it was that word of mouth. It was that reputation kind of helping you, and I'm sure still helping you today. How big is your team now? How many attorneys and support staff?
Mm-hmm. We have 9 lawyers, in process of hiring a couple of more, and we have I believe, 10 in-house support staff and a few remote support staff.
At what percentage pace is the firm currently growing, Jim?
We're pumping the brakes a little bit. We like our size. I would say over the past few years, we've grown 20% each year, add another lawyer or two, add another staff person or two. But, I came from I came from a firm that was a little too big for me.
Hmm.
And I know growth is always important. So I wrestle with not growing, but I also like the size of an office where I know everybody here.
Right.
We do, a potluck Thanksgiving that we actually enjoy. We all work hard, but I would go eat dinner with anybody here. And I think most people in here would eat with me, despite me being the boss, even in light of that. I am the only partner that this year is getting invited to the litigation team. The associates have their own little chat, their own little party, and I've given them so much grief for excluding me and making me feel my age. They're actually going to let me come this year. I think they just want me to take it.
Congratulations. That's big. Yeah.
It's big. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. But that is priceless, right? To build that kind of culture and to grow in a way that maintains that. I think that's really smart, and I can certainly appreciate that. What are your primary sources of new business now? How are you marketing the firm?
We do a modest amount of TV in blitzes. We don't have the budget that a lot of the monster firms have, so we probably I probably would say my budget is a third of what the biggest advertiser is here. So I'll do it maybe 2 months at a time. We work our referral sources hard. We have some big advertisers that do not want to wade into some of the litigation. And it's hard litigation that we do. It's expensive litigation. And we're going to get some really strong defense firms. So they will, we all have ethical fee referral agreements now. That we've had them checked through the board, and I send out letters every month to all of our referral lawyers to say, hey, look at these checks I sent out this month.
Wow.
Why don't you get you one?
Smart.
And I try to talk with law firms that I know they don't want to do what I do, but instead of just turning that case down or saying I don't do it, we get them to send it to us.
How do you find new referral partnerships? It's really smart to nurture the ones you have and kind of keep them up to date. But, I like that newsletter or the letter that you send out. How are you kind of prospecting and finding those potential referral sources?
It's funny as I used to litigate a lot. And as I've gotten older, I realized I either have to be a business person or a lawyer. And I was getting to be where I was kind of half-assing both. Mm-hmm. And so I tilted toward the business side. And so I literally, if a new big law firm comes into Middle Tennessee, East Tennessee, I bug them to death. Sometimes you can't find their emails on the website. So I call the bar association, whatever state they're from, and I get their email. I send them a bottle of Jack Daniels from Winchester, Tennessee. I literally, Pastor, it's amazing. Some people, I don't know how you might have emailed us 5 times before I responded, Karen. And not out of, trying to be tacky or anything, but everybody's going through their list, right? Yeah. I've got to get this done. I got to get this done. So I realized that lawyer I'm attacking, he's got that same, or she's got that same issue. So persistence, right? I'm persistent until they send me a case. And then once I send them a check back, it's easy to get more, right?
Right. And you're personally doing that outreach, it sounds like, or as your team? Yeah, that's great. What other marketing approaches are you pursuing? Any digital marketing, anything online?
So obviously, we, have our web presence. Our newest addition is we hired a full-time videographer for the office. And we are, I'm still testing. It's a hard test for the return on investment, but I think like any major corporation, a lot of it is just top of mind. So whether they see, we have videos on all the dogs that my lawyers bring into this office. We look more like a dog care center than a law firm sometimes. But you know what? And I have a couple of lawyers that argue about the liability of Hogwarts when if any of the kids die during the Quidditch matches, which I know very little bit of, but they can be passionate about it. And we got 1 million views on
Wow.
that video, right?
Yeah.
And so what we realize is that it's really hard to get people to watch our conversation, maybe for the general public,
Yeah.
but they will, if I can get those viral videos going out and then sprinkle in some content, that is our new approach right now.
Super smart, super smart. Kind of that two-step approach, broad topics, interesting, entertaining, things that people would actually care about, whether or not they're actively looking for an attorney, right? And then you
Right.
have their attention and their trust, and sprinkling in a little bit of the legal focused content. Certainly, a winning approach. So, what are you doing with these videos? You said you got 1 million views on what platform? Where did you post that? Where are you posting?
We're doing TikTok, Insta Reels. YouTube is starting to pick up more traction
Hmm.
than I realized. And we're still early in this game. I'd say we've started hitting it hard the first of this year.
Oh wow.
So we're just trying to increase our size as much as I can, and then I've got to get my head around. Okay, now what do we do with this other than the
Mhm.
$50 TikTok sends me a month, right? What do I? How do I? And I've been talking to our web folks. It's hard to parlay. Just because you're great on TikTok doesn't necessarily mean you doesn't really have much to do with my search engine. For our website and those things. Right now it is more name recognition, and I'm searching for that. Everybody that I've talked to says you start this funnel here, and then as you narrow it down, people will remember you. And I'm still trying to figure out how to measure that.
Sure, right. And it might be immeasurable, right? It might not be something that you can tie that direct ROI to. So it doesn't sound like you're necessarily generating leads directly through social media at this point, but it's certainly kind of a branding play and creating that foundation with, is that accurate?
It, is it? I should have just told you to say it. That's perfect. That's it, really. It's that branding foundation. And the other thing you said, Kara, that I think is right is trust.
Yeah.
I do one other marketing thing I've done forever is, one thing that I feel that I have is I hope that I'm genuine. I like people, and in a 30-second commercial, people don't see that. So
Right.
I do these 2-minute news interviews on all of our local channels, on two or three of them, and it gives people 2 minutes to hear me talk and throw in a joke about my kids or whatever. And when people realize that, hey, I'm just a regular person and I'm happy to help you and you can trust me, because half the people I tell, there's not, you don't even need a lawyer. Trust is so important in our industry because we are not at the top of the trust food chain right now, right? So I think it's important that people realize that you're just like them.
Absolutely. Jim, do you run any Google ads, PPC, Facebook ads, anything like that?
We do a decent amount of, I'd say, probably 25% of my budget is PPC.
Okay.
Um, I got a love hate with it.
Yeah.
But then every time I, I'm tempted to pull the plug, I get a strong case,
Mm.
and it's funny, I get good cases from other lawyers on that. Whereas, like, if I'm looking for another lawyer in another state, I rarely will hit the pay per click button, because I'm like, oh, I'd hate to do that to somebody, because I hate it
Right.
when they do it to me.
Right.
And I don't always have the trust for it.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
but I get, I don't know if it's an age thing or what, but I've got some great lawyer referrals from it.
Do you know which ads are performing best? What
On
your
mine, our nursing home ads perform pretty good.
well,
We have one up that I changed up just to make it stand out a little bit different, where I say we have a 98.7% success rate. and that one seems to do well. And I saw somebody else picked it up recently in another state, which flattered, or maybe we both thought of it at the same time, right? But I think people love numbers and statistics,
Yeah.
so that one seems to be people respond to it pretty well.
Yeah, anything to kind of quantify it certainly gives it
Mhm.
legs. Do you track your cost per lead or your cost, per client through any of these channels?
I try to. We call rail. We do a report at the end of the month. I check the PPC cost. I have yet. I I don't know if it's me or what. I have a rough idea of what my cost per client is, but I have never trusted my data.
Hmm.
And I have always struggled because I just feel like it comes from so many different sources. I always worry, does the person who clicks my PPC, does he do that because somebody at church told him to call
Right,
me?
right.
Is, there's, so that's where I've kind of have come to the point where I can get a rough idea of it. But my true thing is I just gotta be out there as much
Yeah.
as I can.
I mean, I
So it's
think
top
that's
of
smart.
mind when they need me.
I actually think it's a mistake to become too narrowly focused on per channel tracking because to your point, right? Maybe they saw a video on TikTok and then they Googled you and then, they saw your TV ads. So it's really kind of that overall, holistic approach that I do think is smart. So about what percentage of your overall revenue are you investing in marketing and advertising?
We It is about 15%.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's good. Are you working with a marketing agency or is all this happening in-house?
It is a combination. I have a TV agency that I've used for a long time. I have a PPC company, and then our latest kind of social media stuff is in house.
And what about SEO, organic? Are you
We work with we work with Justia.
Oh, okay.
I've been with them for a long time. I think Justia really they give you that platform, but it's really yours to work. You've got to create the pages, so you've got to.
Mm.
I mean, you've got to work it. They don't just do it all for you. I've had other companies work with it. It's more, hey, we just uploaded 50 pages on this topic, and we're doing this, and we're linking, and whatever it is now, and um, uh, it's a lot of that's in house.
A lot of attorneys I talk to are dissatisfied with their agency. How do you ensure that your agency is doing the work that they say? It sounds like you or the team, very hands-on with that. Are you reporting leads back to your agency? What does that communication look like?
So on the my PPC folks, they're new for me, and that was important when we went with them. Is every month they send me a report. We go through what's performing the best, what is not, and there's a lot of things that may be performing well that if it wasn't for me giving input, and letting them know, hey, this may be great, but I don't like these cases or I don't want
Right.
this, it would stay on there. So you're saying you have to be hands on unless you've just got so much money you don't care. I mean, you can always just throw all the money you can, and we just don't have that budget. So I think you really have to be involved. So it's a lot of reporting back and forth for everyone I work with.
That's smart for sure. Can we talk about intake quickly? What does your typical intake process look like? A call comes in or an inquiry form, comes through, then what happens?
We have three in-house intake people. We use Lead Docket, which was one thing that was real important for me, especially a few years ago. It hit so many law firms, not as much that nowadays are focused on their side of that equation working, and they were neglecting the client's experience. So we just got a case status for the same reason. And so, what was important to me was the call comes in, it goes to, if it makes it past that initial intake test, it goes to a paralegal or a lawyer. My intake folks know that that person is getting a text, they're getting an email, the potential client. They're notified when they should hear something back. They're given some homework,
Hmm.
right? Do we have pictures? Can you find out this? They need to know something's going on. When you order pizza at Uber Eats, you can watch your little pizza come to your house, right? Every step of the way.
Yep.
And that is what's expected now. So if you don't give that person that same experience, if they don't hear anything in 30 minutes, in a couple hours, they're calling the next commercial they see. So you keeping it's hard enough to get that phone to ring. It is just as hard nowadays to keep that client in a place that I know I've got great lawyers. They're in the right place. I don't want them to go. I can't tell you when I have a bad intake. I can't tell you how many times I've had a nursing home case call it not get handled correctly, and then one of my referral law firms sends it to me 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had that happen numerous times, and it
Wow.
just
Yep.
bugs
Yep.
me to death.
Yep. Yep. So how do you monitor phone calls, incoming phone calls? Are you listening? Are you ever mystery calling the firm?
Oh
Are
no,
you,
I keep wrestling with that. It just seems so big brother to me. I can't bring
yeah.
myself to it.
Yeah. Are you, what kind of training goes into to making sure that that high level customer service that you're referring to, that you're able to stay consistent with that?
Right. Not, these self-examining interviews make me second guess everything. And so probably not enough. It's me sitting down with them. I've had my main intake person for a long time, and I've listened to her, I've heard her. I know she's great. She
Yeah.
keeps me in there and then she trains. But, I have been thinking lately it's time for me to get somebody outside
Yeah.
of my office to
Right.
do that, to say, hey, what if we did it this way? What if we do it that way?
Yeah.
And do that in a way that I can tell my intake people that I'm not doing this to um, punish you,
Right.
but to help you and make your
Right.
job easier and create more success for you.
Exactly. An audit can uncover some low hanging fruit, right? Some opportunities that can make everyone's life easier. Do you have
Yeah,
24/7 after hours phone coverage?
we do.
Yeah.
Not in office. We have an outside
Yeah.
uh, voice person. We always have somebody in call. If it's something that qualifies that we think is a good lead, they get an extra bonus if they call and sign it up after hours.
Smart. What about emailing? Do you maintain or regularly send emails to either a list of prospects or past clients? Are you sending emails or texts regularly?
We don't. We haven't, and that is part of the reason we've got case status. Is my hope is to once we will close case, hopefully they will have this app on their phone, and we will let people know that all of their important legal documents are in there, that they can just with that touch of the button call us right back. And we are with that. We're also implementing, a little happy birthday, how you doing, those follow-up constant texts, because we've really neglected that with our current system. And I like that a little bit better. I worry about, I think every holiday, my wife and I sit around and unsubscribe as all of the Black Friday sales come
Right.
through or whatever.
Yep.
And it is hard to compete with all that clutter right there in email. So I'm
Definitely.
optimistic about the app.
Definitely. So Jim, since you've sort of, moved away from practicing law and more into this kind of entrepreneurial role, how do you stay up to date with, best marketing practices? Or have you ever been part of a mastermind group? Do you attend conferences? How are you educating yourself?
Conferences.
Mm.
I went to, and that was a weird change for me a little bit to go from legal conferences. I'd always go to AHA and this every year and
Right.
do those things. And now all of a sudden I'm going to I went to the CEO lawyer conference
Oh,
in Atlanta, and it was a lot of fun. It took me back a little bit, but that's part of the reason we did the um, in-house videographer. And I realized after that, that when you go to those, not everything is your fit or true to you, but you always get ideas. You always can self-examine and see what can change to do better. So seminars is big with me. And then there are some great Facebook groups.
wow.
I'm on Maxim Lawyer and a few others that
Great.
they're just some good tips. So every time I think I've got it figured out, somebody else says something, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea.
That's good advice. And going to attending those conferences for the speakers and the keynotes and getting all the education is great. But I would imagine that equally as valuable the networking that you're doing with other like-minded
Mhm.
attorneys at those conferences. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Jim, are you using AI at all in your practice, either for marketing or for daily work?
Just started.
Yeah.
So we have signed up with ClearBrief, which has a AI in it,
Okay.
and we have a lot of heavy lifting on our nursing home cases and our products cases because there's always a ton of documents to go through. It's really speeding up my lawyers and paralegals' times on medical records, summarizing, and just writing those briefs. And then I honestly love it myself. I did a little interview the other day on a local show, and they wanted to talk about a topic, and I'll sit around and I usually crank out a topic just the old school way in an hour, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this in AI, and I got that back in seconds, which I modified to make it more my voice,
Sure.
but to 5 minutes as opposed to an hour. So I'm obsessed with it right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the efficiencies, right? The efficiencies that it creates, it's just kind of a no-brainer, right? It's really cool.
Hmm.
Would you be willing to share some of your biggest mistakes or lessons learned while growing the firm over the years?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Let me think. I did had a really good website going. I'm so old though. I always feel like some of my mistakes are just they have nothing to do as technology has moved so fast and all that. And I changed websites and I changed companies. It was one of those grass is greener things. And oh my God, it took me years to get back from that. So I swore uh, no more knee jerk reactions like that. The other thing is I I would tend to hire anybody that I kind of would just feel sorry for.
Hmm.
That's a bad way to put it. I don't mean that sound arrogant, but if I liked them, I felt for
Sure.
them. And what I realized pretty quickly is I would end up doing their job or a second time out of mine. And I realized that I am actually smart enough to know who is smarter than me. And
Hmm.
I made this shift fairly early on to hire the smartest people I know and steal them from other firms and just suck it up and pay that extra to get that person because um, you get a good person and you treat them right, they make your life so much easier. The cases are more valuable. They stick with you. They're loyal. I'm loyal to them. Hire smart people.
I love that. I love that. And what advice, kind of sticking with that hiring for a second, what advice would you have to the attorney watching who maybe they're looking to make their very first hire, right? They're at that
Mhm.
point where they've sort of become the bottleneck, right? They're really looking to scale, looking to grow a little bit, and it's time. What advice would you have for that attorney?
I think it is. It's always a little, to this day, we're about to hire somebody, and as the experience level comes up, the price tag comes up, and I still wrestle with that. But if you hire, what is it? Hire slowly, fire quick, right? So if somebody's in there and they aren't doing their job, just get rid of them quick. But don't be afraid of paying a little more and getting that person that is going to help you. And I will say this: gets I'm at a point now where I've got enough of a caseload where I can hire somebody that I'm not worried about them bringing me business. But early on, if it is your first hire, especially, and it never hurts now, I'm looking at somebody that's probably going to bring some pretty big cases with them. Get somebody that brings you cases. Get somebody that's already got something they can bring with you. They will pay for themselves
Right.
and give them a piece of it. I always make sure
Mhm.
that part of a percentage of my lawyer's income comes from what they produce. I don't care what their salary size is. It's what they produce, and they will squeeze a little bit more out of those cases. They won't be afraid to ask for cases. Give them a part of the profit.
Excellent advice. What does your interview process look like? How are you able to find those rock stars that really do make a difference on your bottom line?
Oh, I'm horrible at it. I'm horrible at it. I go out with them for coffee. I talk to them just about personal life. I see if I like this person,
Mhm.
and then I hand them over to my partner, who is the exact opposite of me. And I don't know if that's good advice or not, but the other thing I've figured out in life early is there's some things I'm really good at, and there's some things I'm horrible at. And my partner happens to be the exact mirror opposite of me. So he is a hard ass when he interviews people, and he is much more. So they'll like me, but he will have a better process to say if they're going to be a good lawyer.
Yeah.
Because everybody will come through and I will say, man, I like that person.
Yeah.
And then he'll come back and go, nope.
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, next one. And then when we both get it to where I know it's a person that's going to have a good personality and he knows that it's a person that's going to work well with us, then that's a good match. So it's more of a team effort around
That's
here.
a good balance. Yeah, good balance. So, Jim, before we wrap up, I always like to ask if a lawyer watching only has time to adopt one, maybe two of your tips, what would you recommend?
Make the ask. It took me forever to not make the ask. It's amazing what you get if you ask for it. Ask a lawyer, hey, send me a case that you don't want. Ask your friends, hey, send me a case. Ask it, or tell me whatever. People, if you just ask, people will do it. It's amazing how many people will come in and say, oh, I'm a lawyer and I do this, and they never get to that next step to say, hey, send me a case. If you know anybody needs a lawyer, will you send it to me? And they'll go, oh yeah, sure. And they won't if you don't ask.
It seems like a no-brainer, right? But make the ask, follow up, like you said, nudge,
Follow up.
nurture, cultivate those relationships, and I think a lot can come out of that. Great
Yeah.
advice, Jim. Thank you so much. You were super generous with your time and your knowledge. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you. It's great meeting you.
Some really great stuff from Jim today, right? Here are the key takeaways I see. Number one, your agency needs feedback. However the communication occurs, your agency needs to learn case quality. Otherwise, it will be based on, what will it be based on, right? Otherwise, it will base its decisions on investment allocation solely on lead quality, and you will end up with more poor quality cases. Instead, steer your agency to the ads and phrases that bring the better cases. Frequently, that will occur with niches, just as Jim has found with nursing home cases and a prior interview found with civil rights cases. So number two, shop your firm. What does this mean? I mean, it has to be done if you want to improve your conversion rate. Your calls should be recorded and periodically monitored, and you should ask friends and family to occasionally call in and report what they heard. I suspect that Jim is missing a sizable opportunity for improvement given his complaint about good prospects calling his firm but signing with others. Number three, hire attorneys who bring business with them. Easier said than done, I know, but Jim's advice, it's really spot on, especially for young firms. Lawyers who can successfully market themselves cost you less over the long term, despite their higher compensation packages. Number four, look for opportunities to provide incentives. Intake is a prime area where bonuses can have a major impact on new client flow, and this doesn't have to cost extra. One large injury firm that I know found that its most popular intake incentive was actually just extra time off. And number five, referrals require persistence. Growing a professional referral network, it takes time, consistency, and certainly perseverance, but can also pay off in a big way and can pay off long-term as well. So as Jim noted, once the first referral check is received, your new referral partner can be a productive source for years. If you're short on time and want help expanding your referral network, my team and I are available to assist. We have scheduled hundreds, actually close to 1,000 phone calls and Zoom calls, meetings with attorneys with potential referral sources. So lawyers, doctors, others interested in discussing referral partnerships with you. And we can certainly do the same for you. So contact me if you're interested. I'll actually drop my scheduler link in the chat now. I hope my interview with Jim has been helpful. My next interview is with a Boston employment attorney who has doubled his clients and revenue in each of the last 4 years. You don't want to miss it. Take care till then. Keep marketing. Bye-bye.